Om Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishna. Om. Salutations to Sri Ramakrishna. My topic today is the inscrutable nature of life. Yes, it depends on what you are, you have your perception of life. But before we can go into you can say, some of the details of the inscrutability, I would like all of us to reflect for a moment on this war that's happening in Europe, to send a silent prayer to those who are affected by it. And war affects all of us. This warmongering spirit of humanity has set back humanity, and we have not yet learned how to dispense with that. I would also like you all to reflect on, for a moment, on the wider state of things. There is now indisputable, you can say, evidence that we are either approaching or have entered the sixth mass extinction of life in the globe, on Earth. There have been 5 major extinctions of where about 94% of all the known species of life were extinct because of either geologic processes or asteroids slamming into us. But this time, the humans are playing a very detrimental role in this extinction. So we have this great responsibility to all. Life has somehow crawled up from near extinction and has survived. We need to respect life in all its forms. Life in Sanskrit is called prana. That's the vital force or the life force. And like everything which has name and form is subject to the laws of causation, popularly called as karma. It's not just the laws of causation that is karma, but karma in its widest aspect encompasses everything of life. I always give an example of we carelessly toss out the plastic bag, and that plastic bag comes to us as microplastics. Now it's everywhere. These microplastics are in us, outside us, on land, and water, and air, everywhere. This is one aspect of the law of karma. You get the things that you have paved the way for. So what is life? Erwin Schrödinger has written What is Life? And there have been mystics, and there have been scientists, and there have been saints, and there have been scientists, and they have been, all the people have asked this question, and it has been extremely perplexing to especially religion. They have come out with n number of doctrines. They weren't doctrines, they were concepts that became doctrines. And if you look at the vast spectrum of all the cultures in the world, they have approached this question in their own particular way. So you get a vast, comprehensive view of what is life. But that comprehension has to be wide enough, otherwise we will end up confused. Each one of us have approached this question. Some have got answers, but it's the answers have always been like the horizon. The more we approach the answers, the more it falls back. So this has been the eternal quest of the human soul. What is life? Why? Because we are alive. We want to know the mystery. What's the secret? What's the origin? And why life? And why here? And why in so many diverse forms? So these questions may not be so perplexing to the ordinary person who is so fixated with just thoughts, lower thoughts, like to try to survive paycheck to paycheck, or the person who is homeless. These questions don't arise. They just want to survive for every day, and they don't look at tomorrow. Life is so simple, yet it's very, very, very complex. There are many systems all interacting within us. For instance, the immune system, the respiratory system, the circulatory system, and I'm not a doctor, you can guess so many systems all working in sync to bring out this final thing called life. So, what is life? Okay. So, let me put it in a kind of a perspective. Let me give two perspectives. One is, like Carl Sagan says, the earth is a small blue dot in the vast expanse of the solar system. It's vast. And the solar system is just another small, insignificant star in some corner of a galaxy called the Milky Way, which is in another supercluster called the immeasurable heavens, called the Laniakea in Hawaiian, immeasurable heaven. So there are these clusters and superclusters. We are in an immense ocean of creation. What does it have to do with me? We'll come down to it a little later. It has everything to do with you. Everything that happens there in those distant galaxies does affect you. So this is the macro view of life. And the micro, well, we know. We are what we are. Yeah. But as you keep on fine-tuning your electron microscopes or whatever microscopes you would like, you'll find the mystery getting deeper and deeper and deeper. We are a collection of, say, some 37 trillion cells. Each cell is an individual and each cell is interacting. And there are, fortunately for life, more bacterial cells, microorganisms within us, which is almost 37 million according to some of the estimates. So there are more bacteria in us. Why? Well, we wouldn't be living otherwise. So give a thought to those tiny, tiny life forms that keep us alive. So there's a tremendous interaction between cells and the cells of the bacteria. It's a kind of conjoint action. We wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for them. So you, me, and everything is something but a collection of microorganisms and cells, all working in concert. And it's nothing but, let's put it like that. There have been many systems that have co-evolved within us down this long path of evolution. And we have co-evolved. Everything is a kind of synchronicity which has made you and me possible. The various genes and the various RNA. Look at one cell, the workings of the cell. It's mind-boggling. There are so many reactions going on, the chemical reactions. They're just impossible to conceive of. So we are a simple cell, yet the complexity is staggering. So these are the two aspects, the macro and the micro. What's the goal of life? Oh my God, does life has a goal? Sri Ramakrishna says, the goal of life is to see God. When Swami Satyamayananda, when he read that life is meant to experience the freedom while living, the Jivan Mukti, he leapt with joy, thinking, this is the purpose of life. This is the goal of life. If life doesn't have a goal and orientation, we are in a big trouble. There have been, for thousands of years, by millions of people, billions, who thought the goal of life was enjoyment. Well, it has been tried by them, and unfortunately, it has failed. Unfortunately. I would say, fortunately. Otherwise, enjoyment would have been the goal of life. Thank God. Oh my God. Life isn't so beastly. And we shouldn't say like that, because there are species of animals that are much more smarter than us and much more sophisticated than us. So, this is the goal of life. Okay. Now, if you see what life is so beautiful, it is the most beautiful thing in this universe. Look at life, even a bug, how beautiful it is. And the sunrise, the sunset, the life forms, the trees and the plants and the animals, a snowflake, a drop of water, and life teems in that drop of water. There are millions and millions of life forms in a single drop of water. Life is expansive. Life has transformed what we call the earth. This earth was designed for life by life itself. So when you look at this sublimity, this beauty, why do you need to worship in temples and churches and mosques and synagogues? This is the worship of nature. If we can catch a little of this beauty, and that's the reason why it's called, one of the epithets for God is Sundaram, beautiful. It's so achingly perfect. Every life was designed for conquering the environment, and it has been perfectly, you can say, crafted by evolution. So there's beauty everywhere. And at the same time, that is not the end. Life is ugly. It's evil. The Holocaust, the genocides, the wars that human society has seen, the wanton killings, the lies, the corruption, the decay, the pain, the suffering. This also is life. There are people who say, why is there so much suffering? Well, you have not understood what is life then. A little. I am not asking you to. It's in the very fabric of life. There is the prey and predator constantly locked in. Life is nothing but kind of a food chain, that can be said. Stretches and stretches and stretches. Life lives on life. And this has been what has made us what we are. It's beauty, still it's an evil, and religions have been trying to answer this question, why is there evil? And they have failed miserably. Why is there sin? They failed miserably. They have brought out all these various theories and doctrines and dogmas. And they said, let's have a place, a life, minus the bad, keep the good. And they said there's a heaven. And who's to be blamed for all the bad things in life? There's a guy called Satan and his cohorts. Not us. God cannot be responsible for all this kind. God is good. Well, it has been found wanting. The ancients, they understood, they had a better insight into the nature of life than these moderns. It was these moderns who, as they are keeping on blaming everything on Satan, have been destroying the environment, killing off things and species. The earth is meant for us. Well, now they have understood the lessons in a very, very harsh way. We know what it is. We want to go deep into it because you could bring a whole host of individual and social and all these problems, metaphysical and philosophical problems come up with all these things. But one thing is there, as the illustration is given, a lamp is constantly burning and that is its life. We see the flame burning, we don't see the oil being depleted, and slowly life has to be attended with death. Every moment there is death. The cells are dying, giving rise to new life. Everywhere it's a kind of a renewal. Death is not so frightening. Death is a necessary facet of life. You need it for the earth to have life. It's as simple as. But there's a huge recycling machine. The earth is a huge recycler. We're talking about recycling, recyclables and garbage and this and that. Oh, the earth, the nature is a perfect recycling machine. So don't be, terrorized by death. It has been demonized, of course. In Indian philosophy and Indian religion, death is a nice guy, Yama. Yeah. And the actual experience of death is sublime. It's a great release and it's painless. So death is counteracting all what it is, a massive fact of life, and we better get used to this. In the mythology, we have various gods. In one god, the king of all the gods, called Indra, he is the god of the gods. He has a heaven. A god of gods always has his own special place in heaven. And magic in India is called Indrajal, the net of Indra. It has a divine origin. And this net of Indra in his heaven stretches. If you go and Yeah, if you go to heaven, Indra's heaven, you will see a vast net stretching almost to infinity. And at the corner of each knot, there hangs a small jewel. How do you know that this net stretches to infinity? If you look in that jewel, you'll see the reflection of the entire infinite web. This is the web of life. And if you see the reflection of the reflection within that same jewel, again you will see that infinite web of Indra, the net of Indra. It's called Indrajal. It means, look at it like that. You have got to interpret mythology. The microcosm is part of the macrocosm. These two things. And this was Swami Vivekananda's great experience in India. He writes, Ganges, Ganga, that is Swami Akhandananda, one of my greatest problems of my life have been solved. I have seen the universe in an atom. He had the vision of the microcosm and the macrocosm. And he said they are built on the same plan. So here we have the net of Indra. All life is interconnected. Don't go away with this idea of I'm lonely, I'm unloved, I'm useless, I'm hopeless. This is something that you need to get out of. All life is connected. Everything, every word, every thought, every deed that you do is connected to the whole. No life is insignificant. No life is useless. No life is unloved. Because wherever there is life, there is love. Let me repeat it. Wherever there is life, there will be love. You don't go and love a dead body, isn't it? You kind of recoil. So it's life. The vast. Imagine, not imagine, conceptualize this entire life that we see everywhere springing from one seed. The trees and the plants and the birds and the animals and insects and everything has the same DNA, more or less expressed, which is in us, it has recorded a long journey. Every DNA has recorded your long evolutionary journey of 4 billion years. We have sprung from one seed, and this is what is called in the Bhagavad Gita the Urdhva Mula, and also in the Kathopanishad. Urdhva Mula Adashakam Ashvata Prahura. That is, all life has sprung from one root and has branched off and on and on and on and on and on in its staggering multiplicity, staggering complexity. So we are all connected. The microcosm and the macrocosm is built on the same plan. If it wasn't, you would be dead. So that's why they say, what is this God and what is this God business? They have made it a business actually, God business. And people are gullible. When you understand your life as macrocosmic, that is the vision of the Saguna Brahman. That is the manifested reality. When you are just involved in your own petty self, the ego, then everything looks dark and foreboding and bad and evil. So every religion has been trying to break this crystallized version of yourself that you have about you. It's nothing but autobiography. That's the autobiographical self. In one of my future talks, I'll talk about this these images, self-images that we have. And we are now products of nature, but we have another responsibility, the tremendous responsibility. You know what is that? We are participants also with nature. What do I mean by participant? You look at the fruits and the flowers and the trees and the dogs and the horses and the cows, and everything has been modified by us, by humans. It's a human intervention. Long before genetics, the sequencing of the genome did take place, we always had people crossbreeding things. And that is what sustained all life. Started with wheat and started a long, long time ago. So dogs and cats and animals, we have tinkered with nature because we are now participants. That gives us the great responsibility. Life seeks life, and that's the reason why we also want to seek life outside this earth. The search for extraterrestrial life, the SETI, extraterrestrial intelligence. Let me put it like this. If we do find life outside, it will change the way we look at ourselves. We are not alone. It will revolutionize the way we look at ourselves, with the way we look at this world. And in case we do not find life, that will be the greatest hammer blow that has ever been hit on our ignorance. It will make us responsible for all life. We won't go about killing, and we will be responsible for each and every life form. Life will become so precious. Life will become infinitely valuable. It's delicate, yet it's robust. So this search will continue. Either way, if we find or don't find any life outside, not in this form, we may find it some other form. If we find it, it's going to change us completely. When you're faced with war, when you're in a conflict zone, your ideas of life change. If you have money, your ideas of life change. If you don't have money, your ideas of life change. If you are disabled, your ideas of life change. If you have some disease, your ideas of life change. So it depends. It's a subjective as well as the objective. Both synchronize and bring out your conception of life. So this is, it's all life is interconnected, and we are responsible for each and every form of life. This has been spoken of in the Bhagavad Gita. Is like the evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartati. This is called a great wheel of life. It's a massive wheel of life. Everything is connected in this wheel. We are like tiny, tiny spokes, components in the great wheel of life. And everything that has ever lived, will ever live, is in this great wheel of life that has been set in motion by the Creator. I mean, not Creator in the sense of somebody outside it. And Vedanta, one of the fundamental principles of Vedanta is Creator and creation are both one. You can separate this. If you separate it, you are a dualist, and you're far away from the reality. So this great wheel of life has been set in motion, and every cycle, there's a huge millions and millions of years. there's no time and there's no, you can say, limit. If you say earth started or creation started this time and will end now, we are making a great mistake. We are limiting everything. So in Indian philosophy, another principle that is important in understanding Vedanta is time is cyclic. It manifests and does not manifest. Because if you try to dismiss time, and you've got to dismiss space, you've got to dismiss the transcendent aspect of reality also. Don't worry, we'll get into it in some future date. So this great wheel of life, and the Bhagavad Gita says, the principle in this massive wheel of life is sacrifice. Aghayurindriya ramo mogam partha sajivati. You are living a vain life if you do not learn to sacrifice. Sacrifice is the law of life. And somehow or the other, this has been understood by every religion. Whether you have Cain and Abel's sacrifice or anything, the best has to be offered for going higher, for elevating oneself. If life is not based on sacrifice, it is no life at all. We are, as that is hell, that's a hell hole. So we need to understand life is love, and life is interconnected, and life is beautiful, and everything, and sacrifice. So in the Vedic period, we had this great fire sacrifices called yajna, and people should pour in the oblations. The best products, the agricultural products or the dairy products used to be poured into the fire, so that the deity, now represented as fire, will confer upon them greater boons. So that was the original idea of sacrifice, yajna, sacrifice. Sacrifice. There is nothing higher or greater in life than this. And as the Bhagavad Gita says, vain will be your life if you do not sacrifice. That is one. And the whole, you can say, aspect of it has been spoken of also in the Upanishads, which I won't go into. But somehow it has been spoken of as there has been a long series of lives over and over. I'm not even coming towards reincarnation. That's a law. That's one aspect of the law of karma. Life. So I'm just talking about life as we know it. Okay. Again, we'll deal with this reincarnation some other time. So we have evolved, and it is necessary to understand life has to go through these processes of evolution. Otherwise, it's just not possible for life to emerge, complex life to emerge as it is, complex matter as it were. We are talking about we started with the macrocosm, and why it should be related to this microcosm. Well, the iron which is in you, which is in your blood, has been forged in those supernovas. They have to die, as one of the physicists says, so that you can live. They seed the whole, all the huge, you can say, heavier elements have been forged in the supernovas, or the, you can see, stars clashing against each other. It started with a simple hydrogen atom and has evolved chemically, biologically. So we are here at this stage. We have one great, you can say, advantage. What's that advantage? In human minds, consciousness has unfurled itself to reflect its own self. That's why it's called self-consciousness. I'm not talking about self-conscious. We look at you and you become self-conscious. No, self-conscious. You can reflect on your own self, on your own consciousness. Consciousness studying itself. Try it out. It's a wonderful exercise. This has this awareness of oneself is, as it were, let me put it like this: the universe trying to become aware of itself. You have a great responsibility. You have a human mind. The universe is trying to become aware of itself through you, through the human mind. In fact, there is a book that deals with it. It's called A Self-Aware Universe by a physicist called Amit Goswami. The universe is studying itself. Now we can send the James Webb telescopes all over and see the universe in its very beginnings. Why? We are trying, the universe is trying to understand itself. Isn't it wonderful? You go back to your own memory and you're saying, oh, my mother was like that, my father, my siblings were like this and that and all. Isn't it a wonderful journey? All these things are still embedded in you. The same way the universe is trying to understand its origins through the human mind. Now, we've always thought about, what is this life business? Kind of business, what is this? It's so complex and complicated, and we've got strands of thought, and I acknowledge that I'm just speaking about a thin bandwidth of findings about life. I'm not going to encapsulate everything, it's just impossible. One thing about life is, life always has to be embodied. You cannot have life disembodied. It always has to be embodied. And for this, you must understand matter and life are always interconnected. If you look at it like, oh, that E is equal to mc square, matter is energy and energy is matter. I'm not going to talk about all these things. Life has to be embodied. And in Indian philosophy, this universal material from where all names and forms have emerged is called Akash, space. From where space? Yeah, it's not emptiness. Now we know space is not empty. We are talking about dark matter and dark energy, and your space is expanding. It's not something static as a vacuum. Take that thing out of it. It has infinite possibilities. Space has infinite possibilities. From that, infinite possibilities have risen from space. Tasmat eva atmana akasha sambhuta akashad vayu vayu ragni agni rapa. So it's a kind of a gradual evolution of matter. What enlivens matter is called prana. That's a life force. This is what both the combination of this is what we find here. Names and forms, life and matter. Life has to be embodied. So we come to the universal idea of matter and the universal life. And that's why you say everything is living. Even the virus that you're so frightened about, this coronavirus, we don't know whether it's a virus is living or dead, but it knows how to take you down. It knows how to invade you. It knows how to kind of, and it's been doing that. And we've been also hosting some of these viruses, bacteria. So it's alive. Everything, this prana, this universal life is everywhere. Don't say that these things are dead, the trees are dead. The counterpart of my lungs is a tree outside. We have co-evolved. So look after that environment, okay? Don't say it's just for exploitations. So life has to be embodied. In Indian philosophy, there comes a tremendous leap now. And the leap is what unifies both Akash and Prana, universal matter and universal life force. They call it the mind, the cosmic mind, the consciousness. All life is conscious. So the bug under your feet or the grass, everything has a rudimentary consciousness. It is, from consciousness has sprung up life, and that has embodied itself. It's a tremendous, you can say, this is the reality. People talk about what is this reality? They think, and they think about reality and they think about their ego, and that's a phantom. The reality is here. Why don't we see this? Why don't we worship all life? Why don't we worship all forms? This is consciousness, and this has been the experience of sages and saints in India, for rishis, for thousands of years. It's not something theoretical. This has been an experience, and this is the highest experience that a human mind is capable of. To see oneself as the universe. No longer as you as an individual, you as the universe. Your whole body is the universe. All life in the universe is you. This is the highest point. Some people say, what is God? Have you seen God? What are you doing? Why don't you see things around you? They want some bearded guy in some place. That's a kindergarten of religion. You might as well graduate, come out of it, and see this reality as it is presented to us, because we are part of this great web of life. This inscrutability of life will become then scrutable. Our life will be a greater life. Your life will be a full of love and sacrifice and hope and joy and meaning. So what's the meaning of life? It's you are giving meaning. You ask 10 people, you'll get 10 different answers. So give the highest meaning to life, your own life, and let it emerge out of the shadows of the ego, the false self, and let it emerge into the light of truth. Then you will understand, yes, this is life. I have understood it. Like I was saying, the universe is built on the same plan. If you can get hold of one atom, in India we have this idea. When you can see the whole ocean in a drop of water, your knowledge is complete. Otherwise, your knowledge is incomplete. And we are going towards. So can you see the whole universe in a grain of sand or in a drop of water? If you can do that, then you will see the whole universe within you. Can you do that? Where? In your own consciousness. You have the whole history of creation written down in your genes. That's the whole. We have this genetic memory. It's not your genetic memory. It's just ridiculous. It's the memory of creation that's in you. And these epigenes are the ones which interact with this world. So this internal world and external world is constantly joined. Here we are. We can make this life blessed, understandable, holy, pure, perfect. This is where life becomes perfect. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Peace, peace, peace. May all this that we have spoken and heard be an offering to Shri Ramakrishna. Om Shanti.